is a Fox News special report.
Good morning, everybody. Live from New York City, Bill Hemmer along with Sandra Smith. To all those just joining us here on the Fox News channel, this is live coverage of what we expect will be a national emergency declaration on behalf of the president. As you join our coverage today, this is an issue for the president. It's been out there for 3 years now. And Sandra, today it's about to come to a head.
Reaction has been pouring in from Capitol Hill throughout the night and all morning. Democrats, obviously, and we had a member of the DNC on earlier who said they are united in their fight against this upcoming announcement by the president to declare a national emergency to secure the funding to build that wall. Republicans support him mostly. Some have spoken out against this move by the president. Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, Susan Collins among them. But the reaction continues to pour in and likely will as soon as the president makes this announcement.
Fox News' John Roberts reporting for the White House about an hour ago. Senior administration official telling him the president will move $8 billion in currently appropriated or what is considered available funds toward construction of the wall. That includes a lot of money from a lot of different areas, $600 million Treasury Department, millions, if not billions, from the Department of Defense. And then there will be, we expect, some sort of court battle, and we'll see how Congress reacts as well. But there are a lot of variables in play after the president makes his decision. But given the move on behalf of the spending bill yesterday in Congress that overwhelmingly passed the Senate and in the House after a 35-day shutdown that started more than a month ago, it has come to today.
Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi objecting to this upcoming announcement by the president, saying that if the president can declare an emergency on something that he has created as an emergency, an illusion that he wants to convey, just think of what a president with different values can present to the American people. That's her voice this morning. John Roberts is live at the White House as this announcement's gotten a little bit delayed since the top of the hour, John, but is likely to happen soon.
Yeah, Sandra, we did get a 2-minute warning about 3.5 minutes ago. 2-minute warnings here in Washington tend to be more of a suggestion than anything, but we do expect the president will be coming out very soon. He will announce that he has signed the bill. I don't see a table up there, so he's not going to actually sign it in front of us. And then he will declare a national emergency. Now, in terms of the money that Bill was talking about a second ago, there's only a certain portion of it that requires the declaration of a national emergency for him to tap into, and that is the military construction budget, the so-called Section 2808 portion of this money, and that's about $3.6 billion. They also plan on taking some money that's been seized from bad guys, drug lords among them, which is in the Treasury Department forfeiture program. That totals $601 million. And then through the Section 284 program, which is drug interdiction run by the Department of Defense, between the money that's currently in the program and some other money that will be reprogrammed, about $2.2 billion worth, they should get to a total of $2.5 billion. The president will be coming out in just a second. What you're seeing here, I believe, behind me is some of the angel moms that this White House has highlighted many times, people who have had loved ones killed by illegal immigrants. But back to the money again. The president and the White House believe that the money from the Treasury Department won't invite much of a challenge, if any, at all. They think that's pretty easy money. The money that's currently in the 284 program, they'll also get pretty easily, they believe. Then as they start to move money around, it gets a little bit dicier, and they do believe that tapping into the military construction budget, though the White House is telling us that none of the money that they have earmarked is for critical infrastructure construction projects, and that would be much more tailored toward a wall. That will likely invite a court challenge, but the White House has lawyered this thing in and out over weeks, if not months, and they believe, Sandra, that they have got a very strong stance to make should they go into court. And you can bet that they probably will be taken into court in California within the jurisdiction of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which up until last week, when they got a favorable ruling, really has been unfavorable to the president. Sandra?
You know, John, a moment ago we saw William Barr just in the screen there. He was confirmed the next
He's right behind me.
Yeah, next Attorney General just yesterday. We were talking to Chris Wallace and Andy McCarthy a moment ago about this resolution of disapproval that could pass in Congress, and the president could ultimately override it. But there are some Republicans who are going to disagree with the move. I don't know how strong that opposition is, but from your sources at the White House and in talking with those in the West Wing, how do they characterize today as a victory, which is what is anticipated from this announcement?
I'm sorry, Bill, can you say that one more time? Your volume's just a little louder.
How do they characterize this as a victory, which is what is anticipated here?
How do they characterize the $1.37 billion as a victory?
Or the border security and the immigration fight itself. How will they frame that, John?
Now I got you. Well, clearly, the argument that they're using is we are now in an era of divided government. You've got the Democrats that are controlling the House of Representatives. You've got Republicans who are controlling the Senate. And in divided government, you cannot get everything that you are looking for. The president is highlighting as a victory the fact that he got $23 billion in overall border security, though he didn't get what he wanted for the wall. There are also some restrictions within the bill, such as where they can and cannot build wall. The National Butterfly Center, just west of McAllen, Texas, for example, that they can't characterize as a win. They also need to engage in extensive negotiations with local officials in 5 different areas in Texas, right on the border there. They can't characterize that as a victory, though ultimately DHS will be able to build a wall. But I think, Bill, what they say is we're in an era of divided government. We got what we could. We're trying to backfill that as much as we can with this other money, and let's fight this battle in the 2020 election and try to change things around.
At this point, it's anybody's guess how strong the opposition to this declaration will be when it comes to the House and the Senate. John, we've gotten the 2-minute warning here. We're waiting on the president. There seems to be
that was 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, and we await the president here. What about the reaction that we have had so far? There's been a lot of it from Capitol Hill overnight and into the morning, John.
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly Democrats don't like the idea that the president is going to declare an emergency one bit, and organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union and others are already sharpening their pencils and preparing for the court challenge the moment that the president comes up here and announces that he is declaring a national emergency. There are some Republicans who don't believe that the president, at least that the president did not win in terms of getting the money that he wanted for a border wall. The president believes that Republicans didn't negotiate hard enough. But, I mean, it continues this fight. And what you're going to see today really is aimed at the president's base, to say that he is doing everything that he possibly can to make good on his central campaign promise. Now, don't forget, he's not going to get all of this money all at once. The money from the forfeiture, he will get very soon. The money from the 284 program, he'll get very soon. But the money from the military construction budget, that's going to take a long time. But they needed to request all of this money now because it all needs to be authorized in the current fiscal year, which ends on September the 30th. And then when we hit September 30th, they can start this process all over again. So this could be just the very beginning of the president's battle royale with Congress over moving money around within the government to fund his border wall.
John, I would believe with the shot we have here, I think that's Mick Mulvaney in the West Wing, in the Oval Office, I should say there. The measure does include a lot of things that Democrats like, frankly. You think about the measure for improved surveillance equipment, more customs agents, humanitarian aid for detained immigrants. There's a lot in it that they can say, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in that bill that the Democrats can say, look, we didn't give the president what he was looking for. But the president agrees with Democrats that you need more technology. You need to harden up screenings at ports of entry, which is why I think $700 million was allocated for non-invasive screening equipment. But he says it only works if you have the border barrier, which is why he's digging in his heels here, and he is demanding money for a border wall. And if he can't get the money from Congress, he's going to get it some other way. You'll notice, too, all throughout this bill, and I've talked to a couple of administration officials, there are little handcuffs that are put on much of the appropriation to say it can't be used for this, it can't be used for that, no money should be used for this, no money used for that. And I don't know if it's an inordinate number compared to other appropriation bills, but we can tell you that more than 350 times in the bill there are specific instructions that money cannot be moved from this to some other program, which is now, again, why the president is going for this money outside of the DHS appropriation.
All right, John Roberts, we await the president at the White House.
We're still waiting.
We are still waiting. He should step out at any moment now. Andy McCarthy, you're standing by. If you could just weigh in on the moment as we await the president.
Well, you know, I think one of the things that I'd be interested in how a court will take is the kind of cognitive dissonance that's involved in both signing the emergency declaration and signing the spending bill, which actually has provisions in it that cut away from our ability to deal with certain aspects of illegal immigration. I think it's very tough for the president to say, on the one hand, I had to do this because it was an emergency, and on the other hand, sign a piece of legislation that not only gives him a lot less funding than he wanted, but actually cuts down on our ability to detain people who are illegally in the country and actually gives some immunity to people who are in the country illegally who might be in a position to sponsor the incoming family members, particularly the minors, who are a large part of the reason why we have the crisis the president is citing in the first place.
Andy, can you take us through the law here? Help us understand this. Presently, there are 30 national emergencies in effect. That's of the 1st of February, 2019. One of which goes back to November 14th, 1979, on behalf of President Jimmy Carter, that blocked Iranian government property. And you go through this list, and it's through President Clinton and Presidents Bush, and it deals with Sudan, it deals with the Balkans, it deals with Zimbabwe, and there's so many more here. Burundi, Republic of Congo. So what's the big deal in declaring a national emergency when you have so many of these that are still in effect today? Just give us the distinction for how we should understand what the beef is this time.
Well, the beef this time is political. What you're citing is a big problem that we have in the structure of our government and in constitutional law. The two problems that you have, Bill, are, number one, Congress is very good at declaring emergencies or finding the situations that they think rise to the level of emergencies. They're not really good at saying, okay, that's over now, so let's go back to normal legislation. So you have the law really littered with these emergencies that may have been emergent at the time, but certainly aren't, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And then the other problem that you have is a problem that really comes up in various iterations throughout the government, which is that Congress is very happy to delegate its authority to legislate to whether it's the president or the federal bureaucracies, in some instances to kick difficult issues to the courts and let them resolve it. These are all things that Congress itself, what we elect them for is to actually wrestle with these things and make decisions. And what you find again and again and again are these means by which they kick their own responsibilities to different components of the government.
You're talking about spending and appropriations. That's the rub here, the beef, as we say. Andy, stand by on that, okay? Andy McCarthy there.
Thank you, Andy. Meanwhile, we want to bring in our A-team to America's Newsroom. Juan Williams, Fox News political analyst and co-host of The Five, joins us. Cheryl Casoni, co-host of FBN AM on the Fox Business Network. And Matt Gorman, former communications director for the National Republican Congressional Committee. It's anybody's guess when the president steps out here to deliver this address. We do know that the White House has confirmed, Matt, to you first, that he intends to sign this massive border deal that was passed by Congress and declare a national emergency. Your thoughts as we await the president here?
Well, I think in the short term, it's going to get messy, and in the long term, it could be a bit scary. And in the short term, look, it's going to get challenged by the courts. Democrats are going to force a resolution of disapproving of this. It's going to make its way through the Senate, divide the Republicans. Some of them have tough re-elects. That could be a problem for them. But in the long term, it's going to be scary. I think Nancy Pelosi already alluded to the fact that a Democratic president could use this on guns, Green New Deal, Medicare for all. So I think in the long term, that could be a bad proposition for Republicans.
So to be sure, so you're saying scary because of the precedent that it sets?
Yes, scary because of the precedent. Yeah.
All right. Another 2-minute warning now, so we await the president here. Cheryl, your thoughts. You've been on the Fox Business Network throughout the morning, obviously talking about the money angle of all of this and digging into the numbers here.
Sure. I mean, $8 billion, but how that money is going to be spent is certainly something that investors are going to want to see. But, honestly, from a market standpoint, a lot of this has been kind of noise. The good news is a shutdown was averted, and the markets certainly are celebrating that. We need to get more news out of the U.S.-China trade deal, and that's going to pick up next week. in Washington. But at the end of the day, is this taxpayer money going to be spent correctly? Is it going to go to border cities where you get the most inflow of immigrants? What does this mean for the healthcare system? You know, you've got ERs and hospitals that are overrun with illegal immigrants, whether it's in the Rio Grande Valley or in the city of Phoenix, Arizona, and Tucson. All of these are kind of the broader sidebar issues that investors look for when you look about the fact that you've got an $8 billion potential barrier being put up between the U.S. and Mexico. Will it save us money long term? That's a question for everybody.
Juan, what is your guess about Chapter 2 in this today, about what happens next?
Well, hopefully it comes out. I think this is like an NBA game, last 2 minutes. Boy, it goes on for a while. I think that the next step, obviously, is that you're going to, one, have the challenges on a legal basis to this act. You were talking earlier, Bill, about the fact that we have 30 existing national emergencies, but we've never had one involving appropriations. Not one is about the president taking the spending powers that are authorized for Congress away from the Congress, and that's what makes this very different. In addition, I think the big news here politically is something Matt was talking about, that if you have a resolution of disapproval, that you're going to split Republicans. And so you're going to get people who are trying, like Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, to support the president. Yesterday, Senator Mitch McConnell, the majority leader, repeated calls to the president. He thought he had a deal with the president in which it would be limited to signing this bipartisan deal without the emergency. Then he calls back, and it's times have changed. The president's temper has changed. And so you get this deal. But for the members of the Republican members of the Senate in specific, they were feeling, look, we got the president to sign the border deal. We can move from there. We'll deal with the emergency later. It's almost as if the president had a tantrum and fellow Republicans feel they're just coping with him at this moment.
Well, Juan, did Democrats do enough to work with the president on this?
Oh, my gosh. Look, I don't think there was much doubt that Republicans felt that, one, they had a deal in December. In fact, the deal they had in December, Sandra, had more money for barriers, fencing, whatever you want to call it, than what they've got now. And then secondly, Democrats felt that they had given up, especially with regard to the number of beds available to ICE for detention, that they had given money for 55 miles of barrier fencing.
Let's hear from Matt respond to that.
Well, look, I think this was the best deal they're going to get. The time. Let's remember, Nancy Pelosi said, I'm not going to give you $1 for the wall. That's certainly not true right now. They said they wanted to cap the number of beds, tie the hands of ICE. Certainly that didn't come to fruition. So look, I think this is the best deal they're going to get right now. And look, this could happen. This is only going to last to September. We can talk and see how this plays out at the border then. We might need to make a change then.
Cheryl, in a moment here, we'll find out what he has to say, clearly. And then all these variables that we've been talking about for the past 2 hours are going to play out in their own time. What is your suggestion when you listen to John Roberts suggesting that you could go ahead and get a lot of this money right now, which means the process goes forward while some of it could be delayed for 2 years.
And that is the noise I was referencing earlier, is that you're going to see, we've already heard Nancy Pelosi say they are looking at a challenge. This could end up in the courts. That prolongs the issue, and this could be kind of, again, a speed bump. Markets watch that, but again, that's kind of the sidebar, the noise that I was talking about earlier. As far as the spending itself, I'm from Texas and Arizona. I grew up in the middle of all of this. Ever since I was a child, illegal immigration has been an issue. So I'm glad to see this as a national story at the forefront right now. Yes, absolutely, but it's got to be smart border control. It can't just be money being thrown. Look at the Rio Grande Valley. Look at the money that even John Cornyn has said that a lot of this, the Republican from Texas has said that this is a dangerous step that President Trump is taking right now.
To all three of you, thank you, and stand by. Here we go, the Rose Garden and the president.
Thank you very much, everybody. Before we begin, I'd like to just say that we have a large team of very talented people in China. We've had a negotiation going on for about 2 days. It's going extremely well. Who knows what that means, because it only matters if we get it done, but we're very much working very closely with China and President Xi, who I respect a lot. Very good relationship that we have. And we're a lot closer than we ever were in this country with having a real trade deal. We're covering everything, all of the points that people have been talking about for years that said couldn't be done, whether it was theft or anything. The unfairness. We've been losing, on average, $375 billion a year with China. A lot of people think it's $506 billion. Some people think it's much more than that. We're going to be leveling the playing field. The tariffs are hurting China very badly. They don't want them, and frankly, if we could make the deal, it'd be my honor to remove them. But otherwise, we're having many billions of dollars pouring into our treasury. We've never had that before with China. It's been very much of a one-way street. So that's happening, and the relationship with China is very good. But I think they finally respect our country. They haven't respected us for a long time. Not for a long time. The UK and the US, as you probably have been seeing and hearing, we're agreeing to go forward and preserve our trade agreement. You know all of the situation with respect to Brexit and the complexity and the problems, but we have a very good trading relationship with UK, and that's just been strengthened further. So with the UK, we're continuing our trade, and we are going to actually be increasing it very substantially as time goes by. We expect that the UK will be very, very substantially increased as it relates to trade with the United States. The relationship there also is very good. We have a lot of great announcements having to do with Syria and our success with the eradication of the caliphate, and that'll be announced over the next 24 hours, and many other things. A lot of positive things are going on. We're working on a summit, and you know all about the summit. It'll be in Vietnam, Hanoi, and we'll be meeting in Hanoi. I think a lot of you will be going, I suspect, and I hope we have the same good luck as we had in the first summit. A lot was done in the first summit. No more rockets going up, no more missiles going up, no more testing of nuclear. Get back our remains, the remains of our great heroes from the Korean War. And we got back our hostages. But we hope we're going to be very much equally as successful. I'm in no rush for speed. We just don't want testing. The sanctions, as you know, remain. Everything is remaining. China's been helping us, and Russia's been helping us. And South Korea, I think you can say, has been, we've been working very closely with South Korea, with Japan. But China, Russia on the border have really been at least partially living up to what they're supposed to be doing, and that's okay, as per the United Nations. So we will have a meeting on the 27th and 28th of February, and I think that will be a very successful one. I look forward to seeing Chairman Kim. We have also established a very good relationship, which has never happened between him or his family and the United States. They have really taken advantage of the United States. Billions of dollars has been paid to them. And we won't let that happen, but we think that North Korea and Chairman Kim have a tremendous potential as an economic force, economic power. Their location between South Korea and then Russia and China, right smack in the middle, is phenomenal. And we think they have a great chance for tremendous economic prosperity in the future. So I look forward to seeing Chairman Kim in Vietnam. Today I'm announcing several critical actions that my administration is taking to confront a problem that we have right here at home. We fight wars that are 6,000 miles away, wars that we should have never been in many cases, but we don't control our own border. So we're going to confront the national security crisis on our southern border, and we're going to do it one way or the other. We have to do it. Not because it was a campaign promise, which it is. It was one of many, by the way, not my only one. We're rebuilding the military. Our economy is thriving like never before. You look at other economies. They're doing terribly, and we're doing phenomenally. The market is up tremendously today. Not that that's anything, but, because I'll go back in and they'll say, oh, the market just went down. But the market is getting close to the new highs that we created. We have all the records. We have every record, but we're getting close to that point again where we'll create new records. So our country is doing very well economically, and we've done a lot. But one of the things I said I have to do and I want to do is border security, because we have tremendous amounts of drugs flowing into our country, much of it coming from the southern border. When you look and when you listen to politicians, in particular certain Democrats, they say it all comes through the port of entry. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's just a lie. It's all a lie. They say walls don't work. Walls work 100%. Whether it's El Paso, I really was smiling because the other night I was in El Paso. We had a tremendous crowd. And tremendous crowd. And I asked the people, many of whom were from El Paso, but they came from all over Texas. And I asked them, I said, let me ask you, as a crowd, when the wall went up, was it better? You were there, some of you. It was not only better, it was like 100% better. You know what they did. But that's only one example. There are so many examples. In El Paso, they have close to 2,000 murders right on the other side of the wall. And they had 23 murders. It's a lot of murders. But it's not close to 2,000 murders, right on the other side of the wall in Mexico. So everyone knows that walls work. And there are better examples than El Paso, frankly. You just take a look almost everywhere. Take a look at Israel. They're building another wall. Their wall is 99.9% effective, they told me. 99.9%. That's what it would be with us, too. The only weakness is they go to a wall and then they go around the wall. They go around the wall and in. Okay? That's what it is. Very simple. And a big majority of the big drugs, the big drug loads, don't go through ports of entry. They can't go through ports of entry. You can't take big loads because you have people. We have some very capable people, the Border Patrol, law enforcement, looking. You can't take human traffic, women and girls. You can't take them through ports of entry. You can't have them tied up in the back seat of a car or a truck or a van. They open the door. They look. They can't see 3 women with tape in their mouth or 3 women whose hands are tied. They go through areas where you have no wall. Everybody knows that. Nancy knows it. Chuck knows it. They all know it. It's all a big lie. It's a big con game. You don't have to be very smart to know. You put up a barrier, the people come in, and that's it. They can't do anything unless they walk left or right, and they find an area where there's no barrier, and they come into the United States. Welcome. We've detained more people. Our border agents are doing such incredible work. Our military has been incredible. We put up barbed wire on top of certain old walls that were there. We fixed the wall and we loaded up with barbed wire. It's very successful. But our military has been fantastic, and I want to thank them. And it's very necessary. We've broken up 2 caravans that are on their way. They just are breaking. They're in the process of breaking up. We have another one that we haven't been able to break up yet. We've been actually working with Mexico much better than ever before. I want to thank the president. I want to thank Mexico. They have their own problems. They have the largest number of murders that they've ever had in their history. Almost 40,000 murders. 40,000. And they got to straighten that out, and I think they will. But I just want to thank the president because he's been helping us with these monstrous caravans that have been coming up. We had one that was up to over 15,000 people. It's largely broken up. Others have gotten through. And in Tijuana, you have a lot of people staying there. If we didn't have the wall up and if we didn't have the wall secured and strengthened, they would have walked right through. They'd be welcome to the United States. One of the things we'd save just a tremendous amount on would be sending the military. If we had a wall, we don't need the military because we'd have a wall. So I'm going to be signing a national emergency. And it's been signed many times before. It's been signed by other presidents. From 1977 or so, it gave the presidents the power. There's rarely been a problem. They sign it. Nobody cares. I guess they weren't very exciting. But nobody cares. They sign it for far less important things in some cases, in many cases. We're talking about an invasion of our country with drugs, with human traffickers, with all types of criminals and gangs. We have some of the greatest people I know. They've been with me from the beginning of my campaign, almost from the first week, the angel moms. Unfortunately, we have new angel moms. One incredible woman just showed me her daughter, who we're talking about, killed in the year of 18. I said, I haven't seen you before. She said, no, I'm new. I said, that's too bad. It's too bad. It's so sad. Stand up just for a second. Show how beautiful your girl was. Thank you. I have such respect for these people. Angel moms, angel dads, angel families. I have great respect for these people. These are great people. These are great people. They're fighting for their children that have been killed by people that were illegally in this country. And the press doesn't cover them. They don't want to, incredibly. And they're not treated the way they should be. They're fighting for other people because they don't want what happened to their children or husband or anybody. We have one young lady whose husband, please, stand up. Your husband was just killed in Maryland. Incredible man, just killed. Beautiful children. Won't be seeing their father again. These are brave people. These are people that they don't have to be here. They don't have to be doing this. They're doing it for other people. So I just want to thank all of you for being here. Okay, I really do. I want to thank you, incredible people. Last year, 70,000 Americans were killed, at least. I think the number is ridiculously low, by drugs, including meth and heroin and cocaine, fentanyl. Now, one of the things that I did with President Xi in China when I met him in Argentina at a summit, before I even started talking about the trade, it was a trade meeting. It went very well, but before I talked about trade, I talked about something more important. I said, listen, we have tremendous amounts of fentanyl coming into our country, kills tens of thousands of people. I think far more than anybody registers. And I'd love you to declare it a lethal drug and put it on your criminal list. And their criminal list is much tougher than our criminal list. Their criminal list, a drug dealer gets a thing called the death penalty. Our criminal list, a drug dealer gets a thing called, how about a fine? And when I asked President Xi, I said, do you have a drug problem? No, no, no. I said, you have 1.4 billion people. What do you mean you have no drug problem? No, we don't have a drug problem. I said, why? Death penalty. We give death penalty to people that sell drugs. End of problem. What do? We set up blue ribbon committees. Lovely men and women. They sit around a table, they have lunch, they eat, they dine, and they waste a lot of time. So if we want to get smart, we can get smart. You can end the drug problem. You can end it a lot faster than you think. But President Xi's agreed to put fentanyl on his list of deadly drugs. And it's a criminal penalty, and the penalty is death. So that's, frankly, one of the things I'm most excited about in our trade deal. You want to know the truth? I think maybe there's no more important point. We're going to make billions of dollars with this trade deal. It's going to be great for our country and great for China, I hope. Their market's down close to 40%. Our market's way up. We've picked up, since my election, trillions of dollars of worth. Trillions, many trillions. And China's lost trillions of dollars. But I want it to be good for China, and I want it to be good for the United States. So we'll see what happens. China's coming here next week, by the way. They're coming home, the traders. And then China's coming here next week. And then I'll be meeting with President Xi at some point after that to maybe for some remaining deals, we'll make them directly one-on-one ourselves. So we're going to be signing today and registering national emergency. And it's a great thing to do because we have an invasion of drugs, invasion of gangs, invasion of people, and it's unacceptable. And by signing the national emergency, something signed many times by other presidents, many, many times, President Obama. In fact, we may be using one of the national emergencies that he signed having to do with cartels, criminal cartels. It's a very good emergency that he signed, and we're going to use parts of it in our dealings on cartels. So that would be a second national emergency, but in that case, it's already in place. And what we really want to do is simple. It's not like it's complicated. It's very simple. We want to stop drugs from coming into our country. We want to stop criminals and gangs from coming into our country. Nobody's done the job that we've ever done. I mean, nobody's done the job that we've done on the border. And in a way, what I did by creating such a great economy, and if the opposing party got in, this economy would be down the tubes. You know, I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, but maybe the previous administration. Let me tell you, the previous administration, it was heading south, and it was going fast. We would have been down the tubes. The regulations were strangling our country, unnecessary regulations. By creating such a strong economy, you just look at your televisions or see what's going on today, it's through the roof. What happens is more people want to come. So we have far more people trying to get into our country today than probably we've ever had before. And we've done an incredible job in stopping them, but it's a massive number of people. If we had the wall, it would be very easy. We would make up for the cost of the wall just at the cost of the fact that I would be able to have fewer people. We wouldn't need all of this incredible talent, some of whom are sitting in the first row. You wouldn't need all of this incredible talent. We would get thousands of law enforcement people, including Border Patrol. You put them in different areas. You have them doing different things. Law enforcement and Border Patrol. And I want to thank law enforcement, and I want to thank Border Patrol, and I want to thank ICE. ICE is abused by the press and by the Democrats. And by the way, we're going to be taking care of ICE. You know, we talk about the new bill. We're going to be taking care of ICE. They wanted to get rid of ICE. And the bill is just the opposite of that. A lot of good things happen. So that's the story. We want to have a safe country. I ran on a very simple slogan, make America great again. If you're going to have drugs pouring across the border, if you're going to have human traffickers pouring across the border in areas where we have no protection, in areas where we don't have a barrier, then very hard to make America great again. But we've done a fantastic job, but we haven't been given the equipment. We haven't been given the walls. And in the bill, by the way, they didn't even fight us on most of the stuff. Ports of entry, we have so much money, we don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do with all the money they're giving us. It's crazy. The only place they don't want to give us much money, $1,375 million. Sounds like a lot, but it's not so much, although we're putting it to much better use than it used to be. A lot of the past administrations, it was easy to get, they didn't build, or they didn't do what they could have done. It would have been great. It would have been great to have done it earlier, but I was a little new to the job, a little new to the profession. And we had a little disappointment for the first year and a half. People that should have stepped up did not step up. They didn't step up, and they should have. It would have been easy. Not that easy, but it would have been a lot easier. but some people didn't step up. But we're stepping up now. So we have a chance of getting close to $8 billion. Whether it's $8 billion or $2 billion or $1.5 billion, it's going to build a lot of wall. We're getting it done. We're right now in construction with wall in some of the most important areas. And we have renovated a tremendous amount of wall, making it just as good as new. That's where a lot of the money has been spent on renovation. In fact, we were restricted to renovating, which is okay. But we're going to run out of areas that we can renovate pretty soon. And we need new wall. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank in particular the angel moms and dads for being here. Thank you very much. We have great respect for you. The real country, our real country, the people that really love our country, they love you. So I just want you to know that. I know how hard you fight, and I know how hard a fight you're having. I also want to thank all of the law enforcement for the job you do. Believe me, our country loves you, and they respect you greatly. And we're giving you a lot of surplus. We're giving you surplus military equipment, which a lot of people didn't like giving previous to this administration. But hundreds of millions of dollars of surplus equipment. And as we get it, as you know, we send it down, and you have much better protection. But I really appreciate you being here. So the order is signed, and I'll sign the final papers as soon as I get into the Oval Office, and we will have a national emergency, and we will then be sued, and they will sue us in the Ninth Circuit, even though it shouldn't be there, and we will possibly get a bad ruling, and then we'll get another bad ruling, and then we'll end up in the Supreme Court, and hopefully we'll get a fair shake, and we'll win in the Supreme Court. Just like the ban, they sued us in the Ninth Circuit, and we lost, and then we lost in the appellate division, and then we went to the Supreme Court, and we won. And it was very interesting, because yesterday they were talking about the ban, because we have a ban. It's very helpful. Madam Secretary, is that right? Without the ban, we'd have a bigger problem. We have a ban on certain areas, certain countries, depending on what's going on in the world. And we won. But somebody said, President Trump lost on the ban. Well, he was right. I lost at the lower court. He didn't say that we ultimately won at the United States Supreme Court. They didn't want to say that. They didn't want to go that far. They were saying how I lost. The person sitting right up here, Donald Trump lost on the ban. Yeah, I did. And then I lost a second time. You should have said that, too. And then it went to the Supreme Court, and I won. Didn't want to take it that far. But we won on the ban, and we won on other things, too. The probably easiest one to win is on declaring a national emergency, because we're declaring it for virtual invasion purposes, drugs, traffickers, and gangs. And one of the things, just to finish, we have removed thousands of MS-13 gang monsters. Thousands. They're out of this country. We take them out by the thousands, and they are monsters. Okay. Do you have any questions? Yeah. John, go ahead.
Yes.
You were prepared. Mr. President, a lot of the money...
Were you saying I was prepared?
What, with the microphone and prepared for questions?
I thought you meant I was prepared. I couldn't believe you said that. People don't like saying that.
You were prepared for questions.
I am prepared. I'm always prepared.
A lot of the money that goes to count toward your $8 billion is money that's being reprogrammed in the DOD budget. How can you guarantee to military families and to our men and women of the military that none of the money that would be reprogrammed to a wall will take away from other technology, other renovations, construction that is desperately needed in our military?
So, John, we had certain funds that are being used at the discretion of generals, at the discretion of the military. Some of them haven't been allocated yet, and some of the generals think that this is more important. I was speaking to a couple of them. They think this is far more important than what they were going to use it for. I said, what were you going to use it for? And I won't go into details, but didn't sound too important to me. Plus, if you think, I've gotten $700 billion for the military in year one, and then last year $716 billion. And we're rebuilding our military. But we have a lot. And under the previous administration, our military was depleted, badly depleted. And they weren't spending, I mean, they had a much smaller amount of money. So when I got $700 billion and then $716 billion, and this year it's going to be pretty big too, because there's few things more important than our military. You know, I'm a big deficit believer in all of that, but before we really start focusing on certain things, we have to build up our military. It was very badly depleted. And we're buying all new jet fighters, all new missiles, all new defensive equipment. We'll soon have a military like we've never had before. But when you think about the kind of numbers you're talking about, so you have $700 billion, $716 billion, when I need $2 billion, $3 billion out of that for a wall, which is a very important instrument, very important for the military because of the drugs that pour in. And as you know, we have specific rules and regulations where they have drugs and what you can do in order to stop drugs, and that's part of it too. We're taking a lot of money from that realm also. But when you have that kind of money going into the military, this is a very, very small amount that we're asking for. Now, go ahead. Go ahead. ABC, not NBC. I like ABC a little bit more, not much. Come on, ABC. Not much. Pretty close.
Mr. President, what do you say to those, including some of your Republican allies, who say that you are violating the Constitution with this move and setting a bad precedent that will be abused by possibly Democratic presidents in the future? Marco Rubio.
Well, not too many people, yeah. Not too many people have said that. But the courts will determine that. Look, I expect to be sued. I shouldn't be sued. Very rarely do you get sued when you do national emergency. And then other people say, oh, if you use it for this, now what are we using it for? We've got to get rid of drugs and gangs and people. It's an invasion. We have an invasion of drugs and criminals coming into our country that we stop, but it's very hard to stop. With a wall, it would be very easy. So I think that we will be very successful in court. I think it's clear. And the people that say we create precedent, well, what do you have, 56 or a lot of times? Well, that's creating precedent. And many of those are far less important than having a border. You don't have a border, you don't have a country. You know, we fight, before I got here, we fight all over the world to create borders for countries. But we don't create a border for our own country. So I think what will happen is, sadly, we'll be sued, and sadly, it'll go through a process, and happily we'll win, I think. Go ahead. Let's go. Let's hear it, NBC.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say, when in the past, when President Obama tried to use executive action as it related to immigration, you said the whole concept of executive order, it's not the way the country's supposed to be run. You said you're supposed to go through Congress and make a deal. Will you concede that you were unable to make the deal that you had promised in the past, and that the deal you're ending up with now from Congress is less than what you could have had before a 35-day shutdown? I went through Congress. I made a deal. I got almost $1.4 billion when I wasn't supposed to get $1. Not $1. He's not going to get $1. Well, I got $1.4 billion, but I'm not happy with it. I also got billions and billions of dollars for other things. Port of entries, lots of different things. The purchase of drug equipment, more than we were even requesting. In fact, the primary fight was on the wall. Everything else, we have so much, as I said, I don't know what to do with it. We have so much money. But on the wall, they skimped. So I was successful in that sense, but I want to do it faster. I could do the wall over a longer period of time. I didn't need to do this, but I'd rather do it much faster. And I don't have to do it for the election. I've already done a lot of wall for the election, 2020. And the only reason we're up here talking about this is because of the election, because they want to try and win an election which it looks like they're not going to be able to do. And this is one of the ways they think they can possibly win, is by obstruction and a lot of other nonsense. And I think that I just want to get it done faster. That's all. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Roberta Rampton from Reuters. I wanted to ask about China. Do you feel that enough progress has been made in the talks to head off the increase in tariffs scheduled for March 1?
Well, you know, you're talking to the wrong person, because I happen to like tariffs, okay? I mean, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars in tariffs from China. And our steel industry now, as an example, we tax dumped steel. Much of it comes from China at 25%. Our steel industry is so vibrant now again. They're building plants all over the United States. It's a beautiful thing. And from a defensive standpoint, and from any standpoint, you need steel. You know, you can do without certain industries. Our country cannot do without steel. So I love tariffs, but I also love them to negotiate. And right now, China is paying us billions of dollars a year in tariffs. And I haven't even started. Now, here's the thing. If we make a deal, they won't have to pay. You know, it'll be a whole different story. They won't be paying that, but we'll have a fair deal. There won't be intellectual property theft. There won't be so many other things that have gone on. And no other president has done this. No other president. We didn't have a deal with China. You had the WTO, one of the worst trade deals ever made, probably even worse than NAFTA, if that's believable, which is, you know, hard to believe, because I think NAFTA was just a disaster. It was a total disaster for our country. And now we made the USMCA, which is going to be a great deal. And by the way, the USMCA from Mexico, that's United States, Mexico, Canada, that's where the money's coming from, not directly but indirectly, for the wall. And nobody wants to talk about that, because we're saving billions and billions of dollars a year if Congress approves that deal. Now, they might not want to approve a deal just because they'll say, one of the things I'm thinking of doing, this has never been done before. No matter how good a deal I make with China, if they sell me Beijing for $1, if they give me 50% of their land and every ship that they've built over the last 2 years, which is a lot, and they give them to me free, the Democrats will say, what a lousy deal. That's a terrible deal. Like ZTE, I got more than $1 billion penalty in a short period of time. And the Democrats said, oh, should have gotten more. When I made that deal, I said, this is incredible. I got over $1 billion penalty, plus they had to change their board of directors. They had to change their top management. But they had to pay over $1 billion. I said, what a deal. It took like a week. And the Democrats didn't even know there was a problem with ZTE. I'm the one that fined him. I'm the one that settled it. Over $1 billion. And President Xi called me, and he said it would be important to him if they could get a deal. And we made a deal, paid like in a short period of time. The Democrats went out and said, oh, they should have done better. So what I'm thinking of doing is getting Chuck Schumer, getting Nancy Pelosi, having them bring 2 or 3 of their brilliant representatives, and we'll all go down together, and what we'll do is we'll negotiate. I'll put them in the room and let them speak up. Because any deal I make with China, if it's it's going to be better than any deal that anybody ever dreamt possible. Or I'm not going to have a deal. It's very simple. But any deal I make with China, Schumer's going to stand up and say, oh, it should have been better. It should have been better. And you know what? That's not acceptable to me. So I'm thinking about doing something very different. I don't think it's ever been. I just don't want to be second guessed. But that's not even second guess. That's called politics. Sadly, I'd probably do the same thing to them. Okay? But any deal I make, toward the end, I'm going to bring Schumer, at least offer him, and Pelosi. I'm going to say, please join me on the deal. And by the way, I just see our new Attorney General is sitting in the front row. Please stand up, Bill. Such an easy job he's got. He's got the easiest job in government. Thank you, and congratulations. That was a great vote yesterday. Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
In your remarks, sir, you said that you were too new to politics earlier in your administration when you would have preferred that this be done. Is that an admission of how you might be changing on the job? And
well, I'm learning. I mean, I am learning. Don't forget, it's not like I've done this for. A senator came into my office and said, sir, I've been running for office for 30 years. I've won 7 out of 7. I did lose a couple when I was younger. I said, well, I've won 1 out of 1. But, you know, I never did politics before. Now I do politics. I will tell you, I'm very disappointed at certain people, particular one, for not having pushed this faster.
Are you referring to Speaker Ryan, sir?
Who?
Speaker Ryan?
Let's not talk about it.
Okay.
What difference does it make? But they should have pushed it faster. They should have pushed it harder. And they didn't. They didn't. If they would have, it would have been a little bit better. In the meantime, I built a lot of wall. I have a lot of money, and I built a lot of wall. But it would have been nice to have gotten done. And I would like to see major immigration reform. And maybe that's something we can all work on, Bill, where we all get together and do major immigration reform, not just for a wall, for a barrier, for port of entry, for other things. We have a real problem. We have catch and release. You catch a criminal, and you have to release him. We have so many other things. You have chain migration, where a bad person comes in, brings 22 or 23 or 35 of his family members because he has his mother, his grandmother, his sister, his cousin, his uncle. They're all in. You know what happened on the West Side Highway. That young wise guy drove over and killed 8 people and horribly injured. Nobody talks about that. Horribly, like loss of legs and arms. Going 60 miles an hour, he made a right turn into a park on the West Side Highway along the Hudson River in New York. He had many people brought in because he was in the United States. It's called chain migration. And then you have the lottery. It's a horror show. Because when countries put people into the lottery, they're not putting you in. They're putting some very bad people in the lottery. It's common sense. If I ran a country, and if I have a lottery system of people going to the United States, I'm not going to put in my stars. I'm going to put in people I don't want. The lottery system's a disaster. I'm stuck with it.
Mr. President, could you tell us...
It should have never happened. Okay.
Mr. President, could you tell us to what degree some of the outside conservative voices helped to shape your views on this national emergency?
I would talk about it. Look, Sean Hannity has been a terrific, terrific supporter of what I do, not of me. If I changed my views, he wouldn't be with me. Rush Limbaugh, I think he's a great guy. He's a guy who can speak for 3 hours without a phone call. Try doing that sometime. For 3 hours he speaks. He's got one of the biggest audiences in the history of the world. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. Try speaking for 3 hours without taking calls. Taking calls is easy. Okay, I'll answer this one, I'll answer that one. He goes for 3 hours, and he's got an audience that's fantastic. Wait.
Should they be deciding policy, sir?
They don't decide policy. In fact, if I went opposite, I mean, they have somebody, Ann Coulter. I don't know her. I hardly know her. I haven't spoken to her in way over a year. But the press loves saying Ann Coulter. Probably if I did speak to her, she'd be very nice. I just don't have the time to speak to her. I would speak to her. I have nothing against her. In fact, I like her for one reason. When they asked her, like right at the beginning, who's going to win the election? She said, Donald Trump. And the 2 people that asked her that question smiled. They said, you're kidding, aren't you? Nope, Donald Trump. So I like her. But she's off the reservation, but anybody that knows her understands that. But I haven't spoken to her. I don't follow her. I don't talk to her. But the press loves to bring up the name Ann Coulter. And you know what? I think she's fine. I think she's good, but I just don't speak to her. Laura's been great, Laura Ingraham. Tucker Carlson's been great. I actually have a couple of people on CNN that have been very good. I have some on MSNBC the other day. They did a great report of me. I say, where the hell did that come from? I think it was the only one in over a year. So the crazy thing is, I just had, as you know, Rasmussen 52% in the polls. This is my highest poll number. And people get what we're doing. They get it. They really get it. And I'm honored by it. Yes, Jim Acosta.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wonder if you could comment on this disconnect that we seem to have in this country, where you are presenting information about what's happening at the border, calling it an invasion, talking about women with duct tape over their mouths and so on, and yet there's a lot of reporting out there, there's a lot of crime data out there, there's a lot of Department of Homeland Security data out there that shows border crossings at a near record low. that
because
shows
of us, but it's still,
undocumented immigrants committing crime at lower levels. That shows undocumented criminals or undocumented immigrants committing crime at lower levels than native-born Americans. What do you say to
you don't really believe that stat? Do you really believe that?
What do you? Well,
Take a look at our federal prisons.
I believe in facts and statistics and data.
Okay, any more quick? Let's go.
Let me just ask you this: what do you say to your critics who say that you are creating a national emergency, that you're concocting a national emergency here in order to get your wall because you couldn't get it through other ways?
Moms, what do you think? Do you think I'm creating something? Ask these incredible women who lost their daughters and their sons. Okay? Because your question is a very political question, because you have an agenda. You're CNN. You're fake news. You have an agenda. The numbers that you gave are wrong. Take a look at our federal prison population. See how many of them, percentage-wise, are illegal aliens. Just see. Go ahead and see. It's a fake question. Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to follow up on that, unifying crime reporting statistics, numbers from your own Border Patrol, numbers from this government show that the amount of illegal immigrants are down. There is not violence on the border, and that
there's
most
not violence on the
there's
border?
not as much violence
No, oh, really?
as. Let me,
you had
wait a minute,
26 people.
Let me finish the question, please. Let me finish the question.
2 weeks
please.
ago, 26 people were killed in a gunfight on the border.
I understand what you're saying.
A mile away from where I went.
I was there. I understand. That's not the question. The question is.
Do we forget about that?
No, I'm not forgetting about it. I'm asking you to clarify where you get your numbers, because most of the DEA crimes reporting statistics that we see show that drugs are coming across at the ports of entry, that illegal immigration is down, and the violence is down. Okay. So what do you base your facts on?
Come on, let's go.
Secondly...
no, you get one. You get one.
Well, the second
Just
question is...
Wait, sit down. Sit down.
Could you please answer?
Sit down. You get one question. I get my numbers from a lot of sources, like Homeland Security, primarily. And the numbers that I have from Homeland Security are a disaster. And you know what else is a disaster? The numbers that come out of Homeland Security, Kirsten, for the cost that we spend and the money that we lose because of illegal immigration. Billions and billions of dollars a month. Billions and billions of dollars. And it's unnecessary.
So your own government stats are wrong, are you saying?
No, I use many stats.
Could you share those stats with us?
Let me tell you, you have stats that are far worse than the ones that I use. But I use many stats, but I also use Homeland Security. All right, next question.
And do you, wait a minute, just a quick follow-up, Mr.
Go, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to bring you back to China for a second. The White House put out a statement today talking about the March 1st deadline. The other day, though, you gave the possibility that maybe this could slide. Are you eyeing a possible extension, 30 days, maybe 60 days? Where does the status there? Or is March 1st
So it's a very
deadline?
big deal. I guess you could say it's like, must be the biggest deal ever made if you think. Trade with China, how big does that get? Although, if you look, the USMCA is right up there. But it's very complicated. There are many, many points that we're bringing up that nobody ever brought up or thought to bring up, but they're very important because we were on the wrong side of every one of them. There is a possibility that I will extend the date. And if I do that, if I see that we're close to a deal or the deal is going in the right direction, I would do that at the same tariffs that we're charging now. I would not increase the tariffs.
Let me also ask you about the debt, sir, because it's gone from a shade under 20 trillion from when you took office. Now it's a shade over 22 trillion and heading in the wrong direction. What are your plans to reverse it?
Well, it's all about growth. But before I really focus on that, and you have to remember, President Obama put on more debt on this country than every president in the history of our country combined. So when I took over, we had one man that put on more debt than every other president combined. Combine them all. So you can't be talking about that. But I talk about it because I consider it very important. But first I have to straighten out the military. The military was depleted. And if we don't have a strong military, that hopefully we won't have to use because it's strong, if we don't have a strong military, you don't have to worry about debt. You have bigger problems. So I have to straighten out the military. That's why I did the 700 and 716 billion. But growth will straighten it out. You saw last month the trade deficit went way down. Everybody said, what happened? Well, what's happening is growth. But before I can focus too much on that, a very big expense is military. And we have no choice but to straighten out our
Is
military.
growth the only answer, sir, or is entitlement?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. On North Korea, back on the last summit, you guys came out with a pretty general agreement.
Yes.
I was wondering what you thought has, been accomplished since the last summit, and then are we going to be seeing anything concrete on denuclearization?
Yeah, a lot's been accomplished. We're dealing with them. We're talking to them. When I came into office, I met right there in the Oval Office with President Obama. And I sat in those beautiful chairs, and we talked. It was supposed to be 15 minutes. As you know, it ended up being many times longer than that. And I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, by far, North Korea. And I don't want to speak for him, but I believe he would have gone to war with North Korea. I think he was ready to go to war. In fact, he told me he was so close to starting a big war with North Korea. Now, where are we now? No missiles, no rockets, no nuclear testing. We've learned a lot. But much more importantly than all of it, much more important than that, is we have a great relationship. I have a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un. And I've done a job. In fact, I think I can say this. Prime Minister Abe of Japan gave me the most beautiful copy of a letter that he sent to the people who give out a thing called the Nobel Prize. He said, I have nominated you, or respectfully on behalf of Japan, I am asking them to give you the Nobel Peace Prize. I said, thank you. Many other people feel that way too. I'll probably never get it, but that's okay. They gave it to Obama. He didn't even know what he got it for. He was there for about 15 seconds and he got the Nobel Prize. He said, oh, what did I get it for? With me, I probably will never get it. But if you look at Idlib province in Syria, I stopped the slaughter of perhaps 3 million people. Nobody talk about that. They don't talk about that. Russia and Iran and Syria were going to go in and perhaps destroy 3 million people in order to get 45,000 terrorists. And I heard about it from a woman who had her parents and her brothers living there, and she said, please, please. And I said, no, it can't happen. What are you talking about? No, they're going to get, and I come home and I read a certain paper where the story was there that they were actually forming to go into, to really do big destruction. And I put out a statement that you better not do it. And in all fairness to Russia and Iran and Syria, they didn't attack, or they're doing it surgically at least. Saved a lot of people. We do a lot of good work. This administration does a tremendous job, and we don't get credit for it. But I think the people understand what we do. So Prime Minister Abe gave me, it's the most beautiful five-page letter. Nobel Prize. He sent it to them. You know why? Because he had rocket ships and he had missiles flying over Japan. And they had alarms going off. You know that. Now all of a sudden they feel good. They feel safe. I did that. And it was a very tough dialogue at the beginning. Fire and fury, total annihilation. My button is bigger than yours and my button works. Remember that? You don't remember that. And people said, Trump is crazy. And you know what it ended up being? A very good relationship. I like him a lot and he likes me a lot. Nobody else would have done that. The Obama administration couldn't have done it. Number one, they probably wouldn't have done it. And number two, they didn't have the capability to do it. So I just want to thank everybody. I want to wish our new Attorney General great luck and speed and enjoy your life. Bill, good luck. A tremendous reputation. I know you'll do a great job. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You've been listening live to the president from the Rose Garden at the White House, officially declaring a national emergency to secure the funding for the border wall. I will sign a national emergency, said the president. We're going to build a lot of wall. We're going to build it one way or another. Now, what follows? We will have continued coverage right here on the Fox News channel. Keep it here. And thank you to our Fox stations for joining us. We'll have continued coverage live on Fox News channel. Keep it right here. Signing off from New York, Sandra Smith and Bill Hemmer.